Section 8.4. Our objective today is I can determine the lengths of two sides of a 45-45-90 or a 30-60-90 triangle when the length of the third side is known. Okay. Now a 45-45-90 triangle. Oops. Is an isosceles right triangle. And so, if it's isosceles, then this leg and this leg, the two legs, are the same length. So we're going to say that's length A. Okay? And so by the Pythagorean theorem, we know that a squared plus a squared has to equal c squared, or the hypotenuse squared. Okay? And so we're going to call that x, because we want to know what this length is. So that's 2a squared equals x squared. And so we take the square root of both sides. And so that gives us x equals a square root 2. Okay? So, if a is 1, then this is 1 squared plus 1 squared equals x squared, or 2 equals x squared, or x equals the square root of 2. So we say that the sides of a 45-45-90 right triangle are in the ratio of 1 to 1 to square root 2, or a to a to a square root 2, right? So the ratio of all 45-45-90 triangles are 1 to 1 to square root 2. So the hypotenuse is always the side times square root 2. Okay? So, example. If I have a 45-45-90 right triangle, and I know that the hypotenuse is 5. Okay. I'm sorry. I want to find the length of the hypotenuse, and I know that the leg is 5. Then I know that the sides are in a ratio of 5 to 5 to 5 square root 2. So this has to be 5 square root 2. Okay? So the hypotenuse is always the leg times square root 2. So, example 2, if I have a 45-45-90 triangle, and I know the leg is 3 square root 2, then I know the hypotenuse is 3 square root 2 times square root 2. Okay? So, that's going to be 3 times square root 4, or 6. Okay? So the hypotenuse has length of 6. So the sides are in a ratio of 3 square root 2 to 3 square root 2 to 6, which if we reduce that down, again, is 1 to 1 to square root 2. They always reduce down to the same. Okay? Now, what if I know the length of the hypotenuse? So let's say I have a 45-45-90 triangle. And I don't know the legs, but I know that the hypotenuse is 8 square root 2. Okay? So I know that x squared, well actually, I know the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times square root 2. So 8 square root 2 has to equal x times square root 2. So if I divide both sides by square root 2, I get 8 equals x. So each leg has to have been 8, have a length of 8. So if I know in a 45, 45, 90 that the hypotenuse is 10, then I know that the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times square root 2. So 10 is equal to x times square root 2. So divide both sides by square root 2. So x equals 10 over square root 2. But we can't leave the radical in the denominator. And we can reduce. So we get 5 square root 2. So each leg has to have been 5 square root 2. Okay? Then, so basically, the rule or the theorem says that the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times square root 2 in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay? Well, what about a 30, 60, 90? Okay? So the theorem says we have the 30, 60, 90 theorem, and it says in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the hypotenuse is twice as long as the shorter leg and the longer leg is square root 3 times the shorter leg. Okay, so here's a 30, 60, 90. And we know from previous chapters that in one triangle, the side opposite the smaller angle is shorter than the side opposite the larger angle. So the side opposite the 30-degree angle is the shorter side. The side opposite the 60-degree angle is the longer side. And then we have the hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. Okay? And so what this theorem is saying is if I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, if this is x, then that is the shorter side. Then the longer side has to be x times square root 3. And the hypotenuse has to be 2 times x. Okay? So the hypotenuse is equal to the short leg times 2. And the long leg is equal to the short leg times square root 3. So in other words, we have a ratio of x to x square root 3 to 2x, or if I reduce that, it's a ratio of 1 to square root 3 to 2. So this represents the short, this represents the long, and this represents the hypotenuse. Okay? And notice it goes from the smallest to the largest side, okay? All right, so if I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, and I know that the short leg is 8 square root 3. So we know that the long is equal to short times square root 3. So the long is going to be 8 square root 3 times square root 3, or 8 times 3, or 24. Okay, so the long leg is going to be 24, and the hypotenuse is equal to the short times 2. So it's going to be 8 square root 3 times 2, or 16 square root 3. So the hypotenuse has a length of 16 square root 3. So this is 16 square root 3, and this is 24. Okay, so another example, again, if I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, and I know the hypotenuse is 12. Okay, well, I know the hypotenuse is equal to the short times 2. So 12 is equal to x times 2. So divide both sides by 2. So 6 equals the short. Okay, so this has to be the short side because it's opposite the 30-degree angle, so that side has to be 6. And then the long equals the short times square root 3. So this is 6 square root 3. So given each side, we can find the other, or given one side, we can find the other two sides. Let's do one more. 30, 60, 90. Okay, the longer leg is square root 6. Okay, well, we know that the long is equal to the short times square root 3. So square root 6 equals x times square root 3. So divide by square root 3. So we get square root 2 equals x. So this is square root 2. And then the hypotenuse is 2 times the shorter leg. So the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short. Well, we know the short is square root 2, so 2 square root 2 is the hypotenuse. Okay, so if I gave you this picture, and I told you this was a 45-degree angle, and this is 12 square root 2. Okay, so this is a 45, 45, 90, and so we know in a 45, 45, 90, the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times square root 2. So 12 square root 2 equals x times square root 2. So 12 equals x. So each leg has to be 12. Okay. If I give you this triangle, and I want to find x, well, if this is 60, then this one has to be 30. So this has to be the short, and this has to be the long. And we know that the long is equal to the short times square root 3. So 8, I divide by square root 3. So 8 equals x. Well, actually, I shouldn't have used x, because this is the, we'll call this y. Okay, So now we know that the short side is 8. And then we know that the hypotenuse in a 30, 60, 90 is the short times 2. Okay, so then hypotenuse has to equal 8 times 2 or 16. So the hypotenuse in this case is 16.